Okay, so I see the attendees coming in. Oh.
Oh, hello. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Vicky.
Hi. How is everyone? Hi, Shinichiro. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. It's great to have you here. I guess we should get started pretty soon. Let me just going to get my introductory notes up here, and then we can get started. Okay. Okay. All right. So are we ready to go, Michelle?
Yes, we are. And we are also recording. So good to go.
Okay. Okay. Terrific. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Sorry to be a little bit slow in getting the meeting off to a start, just coming from another meeting. So I'd like to welcome today our guest speaker, Dr. Shinichiro Matsuo. He's a research scientist in cryptography and information security. He's working on maturing blockchain technology from an academic perspective, and he's going to present research results on blockchain security. He's also acting as the co-chair of the Blockchain Governance Initiative Network, called BGIN for short, which is a multi-stakeholder discussion body for blockchain technology and operations, which he'll talk to us about today. At Georgetown University, he directs blockchain research in their Cyber Smart Research Center and leads multidisciplinary research among technology, economy, law, and regulation. He also leads international research collaboration on blockchain as a co-founder of the Be Safe Network, a global and neutral research test network to promote applied academic research in blockchain technologies. He founded BASE, Blockchain Academic Synergized Environment, alliance with the University of Tokyo and Keio University, and he's part of many program committees on blockchain technology and information security with IEEE, SMB, ACM, W3C, CBT, cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, SSR, security standardization research, and others. And he was a program co-chair of Scaling Bitcoin 2018 in Tokyo, and he serves as the leader of a standardization project, ISO TR, the International Standards Organization, TR 23576 on blockchain security as part of the Technical Committee 307 on blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So Shinichiro, welcome. And I'm going to turn it now over to you to present to us on multi-stakeholder discussion for healthy blockchain technology and operations, an introduction to BGIN. We're very pleased to have you with us here today. So over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction. So I hope all of you can see me.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Share my slide here. So I hope you are seeing that slide.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm very glad to be here to provide my talk on Blockchain Governance Initiative Network. My name is Shin'ichiro Matsuo. So as introduced, so I worked on the cryptography and blockchain technology at this moment. And so I would like to introduce what we are now doing on the governance problem of the blockchain ecosystem. Okay, this is an outline of this talk that I will introduce the background why we are doing this kind of initiative at this moment. And then so I explained what BGIN is and the future plans, roadmap, and call for participation. Okay, this slide shows that this is a good place to go at this moment. And this is a picture of that academic conference called Financial Cryptography. That conference started in 1997 during the Crypto 1. And at that moment, so there are many things happen on the export control of the cryptography and the backdoor of the cryptography at that moment. And the cypherpunks moved to that small island in Caribbean Sea. And they started to work on the financial cryptography, and they established a series of workshop, academic conference called Financial Cryptography. I don't know who is Satoshi Nakamoto, but this is a community, so which is quite near to the group of experts who invented the blockchain and Bitcoin technology. And after Bitcoin, the thing is here that so the cryptographers or so who create mathematics for the financial transaction will be a creator of the financial systems. So this is a huge change before Bitcoin and after Bitcoin. So we need to think about that before Bitcoin, that so financial system is created by bank or regulators, government or central banks. But after Bitcoin, so engineers and the cryptographers became a part of creator of the financial system. And this slide shows the current stakeholders and the current situation surrounding Bitcoin and blockchain ecosystem. So this is a simple slide, but I'm trying to categorize so stakeholders into 4: regulators, engineers, business entity, and consumers. So in general, so Bitcoin or so permissionless blockchain products are created by grassroots and open source engineers. They are creating some new technology every day. And and the business entity having much money by using ICO or other things, or backed by venture capitalists, and they try to start a business before maturing technology. So engineers creating so many source code and code base for the blockchain technology every day, and they use that kind of code base to create a new financial business. And the business entity want to avoid friction to regulations in general to create a new innovation. This is a general attitude of the new startups. But so regulators need to regulate the new business if needed. And but regulators are not familiar with that new technology, and they are confused the difference in speed of business. And the most important difficulties among regulators and engineers, there is few connection between the regulators and engineers, no common language, obviously, and in many cases, so grassroots engineer or cypherpunks do not want to talk with regulators. So this is the things happen, and the consumers are the main body and the main customers of this ecosystem. But unfortunately, so most of blockchain business entity do not provide a sufficient amount of information to consumers. So consumers are confused with the lack of transparency of the business. So this is the current situation, and most of the difficulties coming from that. So communication issues I think that we need some better ecosystem to enhance communication and collaboration among stakeholders. And the biggest reason why engineers or business entity aggressive to that, so innovation based on blockchain is and of course that even government is quite positive to blockchain technology at this moment. The biggest reason is so this is the basis of permissionless innovation. So the permissionless innovation is some important word here. And it could empower all people, all general people to create a new innovations and ecosystem. And it may increase the number of potential innovators. And this is a excellent solution to innovation dilemma. So the internet, we are using the internet at this moment during the COVID-19, and so we can do that this kind of webinars by utilizing that. So the internet, and the internet is a great example of permissionless innovation. So this the right part of this slide shows that. So before the internet, so in France, the Minitel was some tools for the communication, and in Japan, Captain system was organized by a governmental telecommunication company. But after the internet, the ownership of communication channel and the right of communication was unbundled, and Cisco provided some product for the routing, and Netscape, Yahoo, Google create a new business based on the permissionless communication. After that, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, so there's a SNS company created that new social network systems based on the free communication of the internet. After that, Uber, Airbnb, and Grubhub, other companies created a sharing economy based on the SNS or much information on the internet. So the internet have the great decentralized architecture, routing, BGP, etc., etc. And this unbounded the ownership of communication and the right to provide new services. And this kind of unbundling facilitates producing new services. So like the figures of the right side of this slide, and it could unbundle services, business, and economy, and create and facilitate a rebundling, and create new services based on the unbundled building blocks. Yeah, but so when we saw that previous slide, so internet provide much good benefit, but so the internet affect governance in communications, commerce, and data. So the internet made a global space. This is not international space, but this is global space. Global means that so the world independent from the relationship of nations, and this is a global space and independent from the nations and independent from the governance caused by nations. So it requested establishment of new form of governance. So the figure of this slide is famous figure proposed by Lawrence Lessig. And before the internet, that most of order of the society is created by market law and social norm. But after the internet, so the order of society is created by 4 points. The additional architecture means that this is technology or code or something. And we do not we cannot consider so any good order of the society without considering all of 4 factors in this slide. And so introducing the internet provide a bad effect to the governance of communication. So that government could not find that target or regulate. And at the beginning of the internet guy is all internet guys were honest, and they are good guys. And as a result, so in the early stage of the internet, so the internet pioneer didn't care about their privacy and security. They are doing just creating that foundation of the communication, permissionless communications. But after the commercialization of the internet, so the problem happened for the privacy, cybersecurity, tax, IPR. Of course, nowadays, so GDPR is the most important issue for privacy, protecting over the internet. And after introducing this kind of global space, so we need to care about that. So change of form of governance. Yeah, as I told that, so decentralization, the permission innovation could help to produce new services. We cannot imagine now by connecting the internet and the finance. But bad news is so regulator will face difficulties to enforce regulation. So change or disappearing the target to regulate. And the blockchain ecosystem is autonomous itself. We cannot stop that the Bitcoin network. And most of cryptocurrency techniques or blockchain techniques has a mechanism for anonymization. So these three things are not only things of the pain point for regulators, but so regulators will face difficulties by introducing global space in the financial industry. And but this is a new phenomenon in terms of financial stability caused by new mathematics. And I'm not a regulator, I'm not expert or in the regulations, but these three items, I think the basic three items of the major goals of financial regulators. The first one is of maintaining financial stability. The second one is protecting investors and consumers. And the third one is preventing financial crime. So these three items are the basic goals of financial regulators. And I think, of course, that this is a goal of regulators, but this is a goal of society. So we need, so everyone want that stable financial industry or financial space, and protecting investors, consumers. This is definitely needed for us, and so we do not want to facilitate crimes for the financial things. And this is not the only goals for the financial regulators, but this is a public interest. And we need to think about that. So what is a good way to achieve three goals? So introducing the permissionless blockchain for financial industry or in our society, we need to think about three things. So facilitating for permissionless innovation to avoid the innovation dilemma. So, but so introducing global space could help more innovation, but could provide some bad effect for the governance. And of course, the other social interest, we need to achieve the regulatory goals. And we need to consider that how we make that healthy harmonization among three items. This is also main question when we would like to make that blockchain ecosystem for the social foundation. As I told at the beginning of this talk, one important countermeasure or one important tool to achieve that kind of harmonization is creating the place for the better conversation among regulators, grassroots, and agile and innovation friendly governance space. As I told, so in the first half of this talk, so we need to have common place for conversation and the common language. For example, so I think that most of regulators do not understand that word of engineers. We need to have common language, and of course we need to think about incentives for each stakeholder. This is not the first case. As I told, that the internet is a good example to think about that good governance in the global space. We need to learn from the lesson from the internet, Internet Society, ISOC, IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, ICANN, or etc. So this figure shows that the big picture. This is not precise, but this is a big picture of the current style of governance for the internet. So in this figure, so here, I'm writing that international versus global here. The countries that, so management of domain names, management of resources of internet is discussed at ICANN. This is a non-profit organization. And the technology standards are discussed at IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force. And the Internet Society is another non-profit to manage entire global ecosystem of the internet. And at the beginning of the internet ecosystem development, governments wanted to govern everything of the internet. This is a natural thing for the government persons, but so the early stage of internet pioneer would like to create a global space instead of the national space. And so the internet pioneer do not want to be governed by government. And after the several conversation and discussions, this style of governance was formed, and the government participated in the discussion at ICANN, Internet Society, or IETF, as one of stakeholders. And there is another place called IGF, Internet Governance Forum. So this is a multi-stakeholder conversation place, just conversation, under United Nations. And so all stakeholders doing some conversation at IGF. And after the conversation, so each stakeholder bring that result of conversation and so improve their work based on the discussion or conversation at IGF. This is a current big picture of the internet governance. And the multi-stakeholder discussion, multi-stakeholder governance is an important tool for the collaboration. And I think that collaboration by multi-stakeholder implies harmonization. It can create a common understanding on regulatory goals for engineers. And of course, that code is a part of law and order of the society. The joint work among stakeholders became a preventing action for the bad things we need to prevent, like so financial instability or crime or some bad things for investors or consumers. And the other things we need to have the multi-stakeholder discussion is blockchain technology and the DLT are composed by different types of expertise, like computer science, cryptography, network economics, law, and so on. And we need to have that group of experts from the diversified background. And this is a new challenge for all stakeholders to build a new governance style. We need to learn from the history of the internet, but we need to adjust the idea of the internet to financial industry. And this kind of discussion meets the current and long-term needs of financial ecosystem based on blockchain. And we cannot imagine future potential of that blockchain-based ecosystem, but we need to start now because that it's difficult to construct the governance structure after widespread of this global and distributed system. As I told, the security was not well considered in the early stage of the internet architecture. But so for the blockchain ecosystem, we need to avoid the same failure. And I would like to introduce how we are organizing that BGIN itself. And this slide shows that so G20 and international standard setting bodies for financial space. So G20 was initiated after the financial crisis in 2007, I think. And under the G20, so there are two types of organization, group of organizations. One is the Financial Stability Board. The other is Financial Action Task Force. Financial Action Task Force is related to that anti-money laundering and the financial financial crime. But the financial stability board is for that to maintain financial stability. And there are three sub organization like a Basel committee on the banking supervision, and so International Association of the Insurance Supervisors, and the International Organization of Securities Commissions. So these are all international standard setting bodies under G20. And last year in Japan, so there was a G20 meetings June last year, then and June 8th and 9th, so G20 financial minister and the central bank governor meetings was held in Fukuoka. And 2 or 3 days before that G20 meeting, so FSB Financial Stability Board published one important report on the decentralized financial technologies. It considers it discussed about the financial stability, regulatory, and governance implication of DLT and P2P based financial systems, and it sets out benefits and risks of increased use of this kind of technology. And this report underscored the importance of multi-stakeholder dialogue. So this is a fascinating moment. This was a fascinating moment because that this is not usual things for nations government to introduce multi-stakeholder dialogue with grassroots engineers. It could decrease the power of government. And this is an unusual thing. This was an unusual thing to that group of government saying that kind of things. But this report indicated that so group of government G20 understand that importance of conversation with grassroots engineers, and even for the cypherpunks. And in that report, so they wrote that authority may therefore wish to enhance the dialogue and cooperation with wider group of stakeholders. And it would also enable supervisors to continue to address emerging issues promptly and use supervisory resources effectively, while at the same time remaining open to the benefit of financial innovation. So this is this kind of sentence is, I think that quite fascinating moment that a group of nations write up this kind of reports. And at the G20 last year, so there was a high-level seminar of financial innovations called Our Future in Digital Age. And at that moment, so there was a session named Multi-Stakeholder Governance for a Decentralized Financial System. So Jun Murai, he is one of the famous internet pioneer. He was a moderator of this panel session. And there was 4 panelists. Klaus Knott, he was the president of Dutch National Bank. And Adam Back, he's a famous cypherpunks and the CEO of the Blockstream. So I participated to present the position of academia. The Bratka, so he is a person at IIF. This is a group of the ordinary bank. And this is the test case of the multi-stakeholder discussion. And the interesting thing is, so Adam Back is the center of stage. This is, I think that the JFSA or group G20 intentionally did that, but this is an important moment that G20, some panel discussion at the G20, the center of stage is a member of cypherpunks. So this is a fascinating moment. And as a result of at that moment, so we discussed that needs of dialogues by multi-stakeholders. So what kind of regulatory goals we need to care, and what is the future discussion area among all stakeholders. So at that moment, so we discussed about financial inclusion and how technology is excellent tools for achieving regulatory goals, the future direction towards multi-stakeholder governance. The discussion was, I wrote one article at CoinDesk on that, what we discussed at the moment, but this is a quite important discussion toward the communique of G20. And as a result of this discussion, the G20 countries agreed to include a discussion of multi-stakeholder dialogue. So in the communique, the 13th paragraph of this communique, so G20 wrote that, so we also welcome the FSB report on decentralized financial technologies and their possible implication of financial stability, regulation, and governance, and how regulators can enhance dialogue with wider group of stakeholders. So this is a result of a discussion at the G20 last year. And right after that, so we hold a series of multi-stakeholder workshop from June 13th. This is 3 days after that G20, and in Tokyo, in Tel Aviv, London, Dublin, Malaysia, Palo Alto, New York, again Tokyo. So we hold a series of multi-stakeholder workshop. Each workshop gathers so multi-stakeholders, relevant multi-stakeholders in one place, and discuss some emerging issues which need a discussion by multi-stakeholders. This is one thing. This is the first meeting in Vancouver, and at the time that Vicky so kindly arranged that place, and we had 24 participants, 3 regulators, 5 engineers, 4 startup entrepreneurs, 5 researchers, 6 industrial persons, 1 attorney, and we discussed about that, so lack of consumer protection with cryptocurrency exchange, and we discussed about challenges of entrepreneurs to build business involving blockchain technology while facing a certain regulatory environment. This is the first one of the series of workshops, and for last year, so we have another workshop co-located with Scaling Bitcoin in Tel Aviv. And at that moment, we have 10 regulators, JFSA, Israel regulators, etc., 17 researchers, 14 financial services blockchain business entities, 9 developers, 2 investors, and 2 media. And we discuss about privacy and how we can secure the custody self and fault of travel. And this slide shows a timeline after that. So the timeline last year. So June last year, we had the G20 seminars and the G20 discussions. Then, so we have the series of workshops, and the September last year, so we had another multi-stakeholder discussions in Tokyo, and then Scaling Bitcoin and DevCon of Ethereum was held in Japan. Then as a result of this series of activities, so we finally decided to establishment of BGIN March this year. So this slide shows that what BGIN is in one slide. So this is an open and neutral sphere for all stakeholders to deepen common understanding and to collaborate to address issues as they face in order to attain sustainable development of blockchain community. In short, this is something similar like the IETF or ICANN or ISOC, and BGIN would like to play a similar kind of role as IETF for blockchain ecosystem. So this is a network, and with online discussions and in-person meetings, and any stakeholder can join, do that discussion at BGIN. So any stakeholders, anyone can make a contribution to BGIN. And for example, so BGIN organizer, so GitHub repository, and anyone can make a pull request to that contents of the GitHub repository. And at the beginning, so we will use a rough consensus and running code methodology to create some outcomes. And then so outcomes of BGIN as creating technology specification guidance and operational specification guidance as a kind of document. So main outcomes of BGIN is a published document backed by multi-stakeholders discussions. And we have the tentative 3 goals. First is creating open global neutral platform for dialogue. And the second one is developing a common language and understanding among stakeholders with diverse perspectives. This is the important thing. And the third one is building academic anchors through continuous provision of trustable document and codes based on open source style approach. This is quite similar. So what's currently what IETF is doing, but I think starting these types of activities quite important thing to have to solve current problem of blockchain ecosystem. And we have 5 key activities. First is providing open global neutral forum and for discussion of issues that affect the development of the ecosystem in technical, business, regulatory, societal, and other context. We have GitHub repository and mailing list to provide such kind of place. And we will host regular and ad hoc meetings and events to enhance dialogue and cultivate some common understanding and promote cooperation among stakeholders. And originally, so we are thinking to host 3 or 4 in-person meetings in diversified location per year. Unfortunately, due to the current situation of the pandemic, we cannot hold in-person meetings. But so we are now trying to start with the online meeting, and after that pandemic problem will be solved, so we will back to the in-person meetings. The third one is actively outreaches to variety of stakeholders and work together with affiliated organizations to foster well-balanced discussions. The 4th activity is to create materials outcomes that influence the way people design, use, manage blockchain DLT based on fair academic and technology-driven discussions within working groups. Yeah, so we will create proceedings, rehearse document, working papers with contribution from all stakeholders. And the last key activity is to contribute to public policy design and implementation through constructive communication with global standard setters, jurisdictions, regulatory, supervisory, and enforcement authorities. So this is the 5 key activities of BGIN. This is a slide, a list of 23 initial contributors. So March this year, 23 experts in this slide with diverse background, engineers, regulators, internet pioneer, academia, business side, financial industry, agreed to create, initiate this initiative called BGIN. I would like to show that, so this group presented diversified background. For example, we have 3 engineers. Jeremy Rubin is coming from Bitcoin core developers. He's the main person, one of the main person. Danny Ryan from Israel Foundation, and Yuji Suga is a Japanese engineer. So we have regulators government from Japan and Ireland in the group of initial contributors. Of course, we have another government person in the current contributors of BGIN. And we have diversified academia from computer science and law and economics. And we have blockchain business and ordinary financial industry. So Brad Kai is from IIF, and we have 3 contributors from Huobi, Coinbase, and Kraken. And we have initial contributor from standard body. So Julian Bringer is a key person in ISO TC07. Nasa Kimura coming from Open Idea Foundation, and Kazuya Sako from Sovereign Foundation. And of course, we need to learn from the much experience of the internet pioneer to design our organization. So we have the two initial contributors from internet pioneer Ni from Ghana, and Pinda from Hong Kong. And the official operation of the BGIN will begin November 23rd. We will hold the BGIN #1 meeting from November 23rd to 25th. And after our declaration of the establishment of BGIN on March 20, but this year, we are now in the 6 months or 7 months or 8 months. Anyway, so 6 months to 8 months preparation phase. So we have one working group, governance working group, to discuss about governance of BGIN itself. We have study group of privacy, identity, and key management. And during this 7 months, we work hard for the community development. We created a GitHub repository, mailing list, official website, and we have hold an online meeting in June to discuss about the design of BGIN itself. And we are now working on the design of BGIN itself and the work items at the beginning after block #1 meeting. So I'd like to explain a little bit more about the study group and the working group. So this is a study group of identity, privacy, and key management. So the reason why we started with study group is privacy and identity and associated key management mechanisms is a key issue for multi-stakeholders, because that privacy is important thing for general person, but also with considering part of travelers. So AML or KYC is another important issue for the regulators. And there is some conflict happened among stakeholders to think about that. So how we design the good identity, key privacy, and key management for the blockchain ecosystem. And, this is an urgent issue to discuss, and this is the reason why we started with this study group. And the goal of this study group is exploring the possible approach of digital identity and access management using blockchain DLT for online resource access, to examine identity, including keys, and access management in relation to blockchain-based financial services, such as crypto assets, exchange, and custodian, to give consideration on reconcile conflicting needs between privacy preserving and traceability of regulatory enforcement, and to fill the gap of knowledge on technologies and foster common understanding on the issues among stakeholders. So you can find that, so take terms of reference of this study group and the chart of this study group on the study group GitHub repository. And we are now holding bi-weekly call and discussion on mailing list. And there are two work items in this study group. The first one is decentralized financial technologies and privacy. The goal is to create a common document that strikes balance between innovation and meeting regulatory requirements. That's how we think about part of travel and create a new mechanisms to comply with part of travel and protect privacy. And the scope of that work and the upcoming document is to describe background issue report and the technical to describe technical recommendations, the standard minimum supervisory expectations for financial applications conforming to regulatory requirement, business expectation, and social norm. So we are thinking to describe high-level policy recommendation, which are intended to be shared with FATF and relevant national AML CFT authorities. And we would like to add analysis on the privacy enhancing technologies for the work item 1. And work item 2 is guideline for centralized and decentralized custody, this is another hot issue currently to think about the decentralized custody. But so cryptographic keys is a main part of asset to be protected, and the key lifecycle management for centralized custody and decentralized custody is a hot issue and a high priority issue to think about by all stakeholders, and including technology operations, division of responsibilities, and the regulatory compliance. So we are now creating the scope of this document. So that actual work will happen after November, but so we will discuss about the model of crypto assets, custodian system, a list of information assets, and the social impact which can be exerted by imperfect security measures of crypto custodian system, key life cycle itself, incident response upon data breach, identity management with access control, AML issues, and other regulatory requirements. So this is another work item currently we discussed. Of course, we are open to new work items. So if you have any other good topics to be discussed here, please feel free to reach out to us to propose such kind of items. And the other working group is the governance working group. So this working group discusses about the governance of BGIN itself, not the governance of blockchain ecosystem. But so that working group also hold a bi-weekly calls to discuss about how we create a healthy governance of BGIN itself, including the organization structure, IPR policy, and the fundraising policy. And that discussion is now starting, and we are now developing initial document development process and internal policy to achieve consensus and organize studies and working groups. And we are now studying the idea of the Open ID Foundation process document. But so we would like to focus on the more open-ended consensus-based approach to have the much engagement with the grassroots engineers. And we will do that, explore that organization questions over the next several months. And we are now discussing intellectual property rights provided on the document provided by BGIN. And we are now, this is just now discussing, but we discuss about ensuring the intellectual property rights are properly accounted for to ensure the collaborative development of various work products. And we are now exploring how to ensure that contributors can join BGIN and remain anonymous. This is an important topic. And there are the two main working group and study group of BGIN at this moment. And from November 23rd to 25th, we will hold the first general meeting of BGIN block number 1. So we hoped to hold in person in Mumbai, India, but unfortunately, so this block number 1 meeting will be hosted virtually online. And the goal of that first meeting is setting up a common stage of multi-stakeholder discussion. This is the first one. And to establish organization and process of multi-stakeholder discussion for permissionless blockchain ecosystem. So we have 3 days, and each day has 3 hours for discussion. So at day 1, we have opening plenary, and we 4 tutorial talks from stakeholders. On day 2, so we have the 90 minutes discussion of governance working group and 90 minutes of discussion of identity privacy and key management study group. And on day 3, we have additional 2 tutorial talk from local Indian blockchain community. And we will discuss BGIN general issues and roadmap. Then we will conclude this block number 1 with a closing plenary. So this is what will happen next. And as I told, so we originally think to hold meetings every 3 or 4 months. And the block number 2 will be hosted in Paris, France. I hope that to hold this meeting in person, but at this moment, I don't think so we can hold this meeting in person, but so let us see what happens. And this block number 2 will we are not planning to hold this block number 2 early March 2021 next year. So this is right after Ethereum Community Conference 4 in Paris. And we have another academic workshop named Coordination of Decentralized Finance, CODECFIN 2021. This is the second workshop of this series, and this is associated workshop with Financial Cryptography 2021. So Financial Cryptography is a workshop. So conference, academic conference, I taught the first slide of this presentation. And this workshop will be held on March 5th at Grenada. So this is right before block number 2, and I strongly assume that so the result of this peer-reviewed discussion at this workshop will be input to a discussion or BGIN block number 2. And the scope of this workshop is aligned that our current discussion of BGIN, for example, key management, privacy, identity, and traceability, and reaction to part of 12 months review, and blockchain-based standard development mechanism and process to accommodate multi-stakeholders. But so we are open to other related, any kind of related discussion item like policy on end-to-end encryption. This is urgent issue on the algorithm agility of permissionless blockchain, or the other regulatory and technology issues could be the scope of this workshop. The key dates, so submission deadline is January 10th next year, and the notification will be so February 10th next year. And this is a document development process of BGIN. And so we have the study group to identify area of discussion and identify work items. And after we have the mature discussion, we will create a working group to develop a document. And at the working group, we have the multiple iteration of discussion, then edit document, then publish document. This is a simple structure of the process of BGIN. And this is one of the key slide of benefit of BGIN to explain the benefit for stakeholders. The common goal for all stakeholders is have a common understanding among stakeholders. But for developers, so the developer can jointly create regulation-friendly technologies and codes, and developer could provide influence to regulation. And for regulators, so regulators can understand technology to solve regulatory issues, and they can create a regulatory environment that balance innovation and social needs. For business entities, so they could input a business requirement to the discussion, and they can obtain mature technologies and code agreed by regulators, engineers. And for users, so we can have the transparency of services. And at the beginning, so we have several communication channels. So we have website here, and in the development of document, so we are using GitHub repository basically, but at this moment, GitHub is a little bit difficult to use for regulators or government person. We are in parallel using the Google Docs to development of document. So this figure shows that the current works at the study group of identity, privacy, key management. So you can see that so we have tons of comment in this the document, and surprisingly, Bitcoin core developers, regulators, banks, cryptocurrency exchange. So all stakeholders provide tons of comment to this document. This is a fascinating thing. And for international communication, so we organizing the mailing lists and Zurip for the chat communication. And we have that announcement on the PR channel at Twitter and LinkedIn. And this is our final but most important slide. So we would like to make a call for participation to this workstream. So if you would like to join the activity at the beginning, so please register yourself to mailing list first, and the general mailing list subscriber will be invited to Zurip chat, and you can access GitHub repository at any time. And I would like to strongly you to join the begin block number 1. And so we are now calling for agenda items for working group and study groups. We are making a call for tutorial speakers and roadmap items. And you can register yourself from website to the begin number 1. And this is a website and the contact email address. And please feel free to contact me and contact us if you are interested in the work stream. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
I think we're at the top of the hour, so if we do have 1 or 2 questions, maybe Shinichiro could take those, or if you haven't got questions formulated just yet, you could also send your questions into Shinichiro at the contact email that's provided on the screen here. And I am sure that he would be happy to follow up with you and respond to your more detailed questions there as well, since we do have to transition over to another meeting. So just a final call for any urgent questions that you would like to raise with Shinichiro now before we end the session. And there's a question from Robert Schwenker. How will BGIN be reaching out to permissionless blockchain developers in the near future? So maybe you just want to take a minute to address that question, Shinichiro, before we end the session.
Yeah, that is a good question. And we will hold another webinar like this this Thursday. And of course, we are now working on reaching out to permissionless blockchain developer like Bitcoin core developers or the developers of another cryptocurrencies. Anyway, so we will hold this kind of webinar to all stakeholders, including permissionless blockchain developers. Thank you.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing the details of this really, really interesting and important initiative with all of us. So I'm sure people will be following up with lots of questions for you. And yeah, we look forward to future participation. So with that, I'm going to end our Blockchain at UBC monthly research talk for this month. Stay tuned for details of our next month's talk, and thank you for everyone who's been able to join. Of course, this session's been recorded, so you can always play it back if you didn't catch all the details. And for those who haven't been able to attend in person, the recording will be there, and we'll be posting that very shortly to our website. So thanks again, Shinichiro, for joining us and sharing this great initiative with us. And we'll see everybody again soon. And Shinichiro, for you, I think you have the link to the other meetings. So we'll see you shortly. All right.